Hey guys, really appreciate everyone getting on today. I'm Bart Nellinger from Progressive Dental Marketing. I've got Dave Rohr here, CEO of Proceed Finance, and we're really excited to be able to bring some information to you guys today to help kind of cope with this unexpected situation that we're all going through right now in terms of the coronavirus and practices being shut down. And we've got a lot of clients that are dealing with a lot of uncertainty in terms of what do we do right now? What do we do to get ready? What's coming out in the stimulus pack? We, go about maximizing whatever benefits we can get. And what can we do to maintain our ability to generate leads and operate, make sure that when we do go back to practice that, we're not going back to empty schedules and needing another 3 or 4 weeks just to get back to normal after you are back in the chair. So Dave's put together a lot of work on his end in terms of research for you guys, so we can make it as clear as possible, just exactly what to do when it comes to the stimulus package. And then I'm going to be going through some different information in terms of how to generate new leads right now, what's happening on the marketing end, just given the simple fact that you've had so many companies pull out, all the retailers and travel agencies and sports teams, everyone's kind of dropped their media costs, and it's providing a huge opportunity to get in front of patients a lot of different times, and the cost per impression has just plummeted. So just kind of talking through what can we do now? What can we do to still communicate with patients through virtual consultations? How can we get it done properly? And then also, how do we get them scheduled and, maintain a business that's working as efficiently as possible through this downtime. So give you a real quick agenda here, and make sure, guys, at any point in time, if you have questions, we're going to cover a lot of information here. But if you have questions, you guys can go ahead and type the questions in. We're going to have a live Q&A at the end, so we'll be able to answer those. If for some reason we don't answer them, you guys can email Proceed, or you can email us, Progressive, depending on what the question is, and we'll get back to you guys with that. But the first thing we're going to do is review a quick review of the payroll protection program that was just approved. What are the benefits? What are some of the requirements? And Dave's done extensive research on that, and he's got a lot of things ready for you guys in terms of hopefully provide you with a little bit of clarity and a really good action plan to make sure that you're ready for Friday when you can submit all that. We'll talk about how to generate new leads even during the shutdown, and how to qualify, close, and schedule via virtual consultations. And also, what can we do 2 weeks prior to reopening to the public? So there's a couple different phases that we're going to break this up in for our clients. So I want to make sure that everyone has an action plan and a plan of attack, if you will, to go about the next 4 to 6 weeks. I think once we get into May, the second week in May, stuff like that is really going to start to open up. Most of my clients are going to be back to work. And we have to make sure that when that day happens, that we maximize this time period, because everyone else is pretty much putting everything on autopilot, and they're just kind of coasting through it. But personally, I see this as an unbelievable opportunity for branding and business development, and now it's a huge opportunity for a cash influx and added liquidity just in the face of everything. So the situation is changing so fast that I wanted to make sure that I got with Dave and we're able to bring some content to you guys as soon as possible. So what I want to do here is flip it over to Dave Rohr. And I'm just going to switch to his slides, and I'll let Dave take it away. And remember, any questions you guys have, just go ahead and type them in. Dave can answer them at the end of the call. As soon as he's done, we'll get into some of the lead generation and some of the different campaigns that we're running right now that are working really, really well. So without further ado, Dave, thank you so much for being on the webinar with us and taking the time to put this together for our clients. I really, really appreciate it.
Well, thanks, Bart. We're glad to be here. And, I appreciate you and Progressive putting all this together. I think there's going to be a lot of valuable information that we can share with the listeners. And, I'm going to cover the money part of this deal and, all the questions we're getting with the stimulus package and what you need to be doing now and maximizing the value of the packages that are out there. So we get started. My background is, I have 30 years plus in banking. I'm the CEO of Proceed Finance. My first career, I was a CPA and actually a tax partner. So I dealt with a lot of practices and professionals with tax planning and all of that. So a lot of this stimulus bill kind of takes me back to my first career when we were interpreting tax laws and all of that. So why don't we get started and go to the next slide here. And I'm going to cover a really kind of high level overview. There is no kind of one size fits all for all of this. Really, I want to give you some practical information and some practical considerations because, a lot of you are all hearing the same thing, small business eligibility and just kind of what's out there. There was a lot of misinformation as we kind of started off, but we're finally getting some really good information out of the small businesses, the SBA and the banks that are going to be dealing with this and, what you need to do and the considerations. So, we're all talking about, the assistance that the stimulus bill, the CARES Act and the Paycheck Protection Program that provided, eligible small businesses. There's $350 billion allocated to these programs. You're all, the listeners in general will all be eligible to get your share of this. So, an eligible business just really encompasses all businesses, whether you're a small business, LLC, PC, or sole proprietor, self-employed, doesn't matter. You'll be eligible. One of the requirements is less than 500 employees. That should not be a problem for most of you listeners, but, the DSOs, the larger practices or organizations, will be dealing with this. There's also opportunity for them. And that gets complicated. But first thing is you got to know there's a necessary test. The necessary test is, do you have, and this comes right from the application, current economic uncertainty makes this loan request necessary to support ongoing, business operations of your business. So, there's not going to be a problem. I think all listeners here have suffered from, being either closed or, reduction in patient volume, those types of things. So the next thing really is, how much can you get? And this is where you try to maximize the value of the opportunities. And, what you're going to be looking at is you're going to have a 12-month look back from the date you apply. Your payroll in your practice is kind of the beginning of the measurement. So you take, and that's the eligibility of cost for payroll. You take your gross compensation of all of your payroll. You get to add back to that things like any employer-sponsored healthcare plans, the cost of those that you pay, the cost of your share of retirement plans that you're funding for your employees, and all other, other employee costs. Some of the employment taxes get to be added back. So you really get a gross look back of what was your payroll for 12 months, fully loaded. You get to divide that by 12 and take that times 2.5, and that's the eligible loan that you're going to be applying for. There's a maximum of 10 million. Most of you aren't going to hit that, but and then you really do the look back. So, the key is just getting ready for this because you're going to be taking all of this information to a bank to get this money. And there will be a verification process that the bank's going to perform to make sure, that the numbers you're presenting them are real numbers and could be substantiated. We'll talk a little bit about that in detail later on. Once this application is submitted to the SBA, it'll be approved. The banks are going to be the funding vehicle for these. They'll get the request or loan has been approved by the SBA, and basically they can fund. The funding on this is going to be quick. It'll be just an unsecured loan to your practice. and then you'll be able to use the money. The allowable uses of the loan proceeds, of course, are payroll costs, any salaries, the cost of payroll, healthcare benefits. They're allowing, if you have debt, to allow the interest expense you're paying on obligations of your practice. You can also use it for rent if you're renting, utilities, and those types of things. So you get to use that money for those costs. They basically then will measure that for an 8-week period after you get your proceeds. And to the extent you use those proceeds to pay costs like that, in that period after you get your loan, you've used what you applied for and received enough money, that you spent during that period of time. The beauty of this is it's completely forgiven, and becomes basically free money. When the forgiveness event is not a taxable event, so it's tax-free. So you get to use this to cover, basically a lot of the expenses of doing business. So if the loan, you don't spend all of the money, during that period of time on the qualified costs that are forgivable, then the loan simply becomes a debt that has to be repaid. The loan is deferred, or any payments, until next year. And then you'll get a choice of different types of amortizations to pay off the balance. It can go up to 10 years. The rate can exceed 4%. Some of the loans I'm seeing that, you'll get opportunities for like a 2-year payback at an interest rate of 0.5%. So basically, really, really attractive terms. And I think, the advice we're getting from, even the SBA is, these are loans made for you. Apply for them and get your money, and try to maximize the benefits of this. I've done a lot of calculations already for practices and even my own business here and Bart, but the numbers can be substantial. And, it's basically, a lifeline for your practice to get through this difficult period, and 8 weeks after you get your money. So with that, let me give you some practical considerations on the next slide, Bart. If you can switch to the next one. This is kind of what, you get a lot of questions, cut to the chase. How do I get through this? What do I need to do? The first thing I'm going to tell you is, the bank that you use, because these will go through a what's called a qualified SBA lender. The list is published on the SBA.gov website of who's approved lenders, but in general, it'll be banks. And I would recommend, you leverage your current banking relationships, that you go to a bank, a community bank where a banker, you've got a relationship, and, use those relationships to get through this application process where, they'll get these things submitted. The verification processes that they need to go through to certify these loans is done in a very efficient manner, and, they know you. So, in general, use a bank and a community bank that you have relationships with to get you through this. If you just show up at a large bank with, hey, I want to do this, and you don't know anybody, I can just see difficulties getting those loans through the system, and, red tape with the verification process. So that's that. You can start this application right now. Yesterday, they put out the application. It's on the SBA website. You'll see on the end of this presentation how to get that. We are already preparing these. You can start filing these Friday and bring in to a bank, get an appointment. A lot of banks, you have to make appointments to be able to get them this. But once they do their verification process, the application form is completed and then sent into the SBA. The SBA will approve this. Now, remember, the SBA is going to be getting millions of these. So, the timing of how long that's going to take is still uncertain. They've committed to getting it out quickly, but you need to, quote, get there. The basically will be as simple as, once the loan's approved, you'll go in, sign a loan document. It's an unsecured loan. And the bank has 100% guarantee on these loans from the government. They'll fund these immediately, put the money in your accounts, and you've got, the liquidity you need for the benefits of this program. Couple things that are interesting on timing of when do you need to file. You have to file this before June 30. or, the program ends. So between now and then is, when do I file? Because the consideration is really there's an 8-week forgiveness period and a 12-month look back. A lot of practices maybe today don't have employees. They've laid them off or put them on furlough or whatever you need to do just because you're not practicing. And if those employees aren't on your payroll, you really have to spend the money for payroll for forgiveness. So you may want to kind of really think through this. Is where you need some help on should I apply once the business is going to come back. I'm going to rehire the employees, be in full knowing full business is going to be there, because that's when you're going to be incurring payroll. Because if you file now and don't have any employees for the next 8 weeks, or business is slow, you may have the issue where not all of what you received is going to get forgiven. So just some considerations. Each practice I will recommend is going to be different, and you need to consult and try to figure out how to maximize this. So the objective would be is, quote, get as much as you're entitled to and make it so it's 100% forgiven. And that would be the best result in this. So there's other things, when you go in, it's been clear as of today that there will be a verification process. You're going to have to show calculations. You're going to have to be prepared to show payroll records to substantiate your numbers, and even back those up with government filings that you've done with payroll. Those can be your payroll tax returns, the Form 941s, and so on. But there will be a validation calculation done by the lender that you're applying through. It appears you've got to apply all of this through the banks to get this in. So the lenders will also be looking you to sign a good faith statement that's under oath that this loan proceeds was going to be used for the purposes it was intended for, to retain workers. You can't file more than one application. They're going to track that by ID numbers. And, of course, the beauty of this is, there's no guarantees that you as an owner of the practice or the recipient of the practice has to put up, or no collateral required. So those are just some practical considerations. You go to the next slide, Bart. There's some other programs too. This is the payroll protection program, which is probably going to be the most popular. That's getting the immediate cash flow and liquidity into your practice. Other things that are out there that the CARES Act created for help to small businesses. There are an economic injury disaster loans that are available. Now, these probably apply more for your larger practices and or DSOs, where these loans can go up to $2 million. They're interest free, or excuse me, they're $2 million. They're low interest. These are not forgivable loans. These have to be paid back. They look more like a standard SBA loan, but they've really relaxed some of the restrictions and the red tape to get SBA loans for these. But they also are very attractive if you need capital, and you have to apply out for these before December 17th. But these are really a larger program. You can apply for both. They're not one or the other. And I think most practices, if you're a large practice, should look into these and see what it can offer you. Worst case, if you don't get approved, or if you get approved and you don't want to take the money, you just don't, close the loan. It'll probably take longer to get these types of loans. Other small business tax provisions that are in here, they're goodies. There's also, if you don't do the payroll retention loan program because you don't qualify, or it just for whatever reason you don't do it, then you're eligible for what they call the employee retention credit, which is up to $5,000 per employee. This is kind of one or the other. This is not available if you receive a paycheck protection loan, but if you don't pursue that program, this is a $5,000 basic credit per employee that you retain. That's available as a credit on your payroll taxes. There's a few ways to get an acceleration of cash there. There's also a rule there that if you're 100 employee, or you have more than 100 employees, that the credit may not be eligible for all of your employees. For less than 100 employees, you get the credit for all employees regardless of what they do. The next bullet is really one will everybody that's listening or our business owner will be able to take advantage of. You don't have to make tax payments for your employer share of payroll taxes, and that's for Social Security. So basically, the 6.2% that you're responsible to pay as part of payroll taxes on behalf of the employee, that does not have to be paid until next year. So you can defer all of those employer taxes until next year. And then next year, there's really a 24-month, 2-year payback on those. There's a couple options they're offering, but you basically get to defer that. That's like an interest-free loan from the government. There's other things too in here. If your business, because of losses at the end of the year, tax year, you're incurring losses, they're allowing basically carrybacks of losses from businesses that can be carried back to offset against profits from prior years, where you can create tax refunds on income taxes. Now, that one, now under the last tax bill, they only allowed carry forward of net operating losses. Now you can take those back under this bill. So there's just a lot of good things. Those are really kind of a highlight of the main ones I think they're going to apply to the listeners here. We go on to the next slide, Bart. We can take a look at some other things that I want to consider. Now, this slide really is all about, the non-government programs that are available. And this is really just business for all of you owners. I know get a lot of calls every day from our practices. They're hemorrhaging for cash, no revenue. They got all these costs they have to pay. What do I do?
Hey, Dave.
Yeah.
Dave, real quick, sorry to interrupt. Just before we move on really quickly, I'm just kind of scanning some of the questions here.
Sure.
A lot of the doctors seem to have questions regarding when they should do the PPP program. For instance, if they're closed down, the office is shut down, they've furloughed their employees, and they're not going to open back up until, let's say, the first week in May. Does it make sense to do it now, or does it make sense to wait until May? And can they do the emergency disaster loan and the PPP both, or do they have to do one or the other?
Yep. The last question is, can you do both? The answer is yes. They're not one. It's not a one or the other. So if you want to go through the emergency disaster loan process, that's available. The difference is obviously that program, the loan is not forgiven. So there is a payback, and it looks more like a conventional SBA loan. There usually and will be a guarantee of some sort by the owner. They're on the emergency program collateral. They're just basically taking whatever position you have. They're not, in general, not taking additional collateral for assets that may be, mortgaged or someone else has a first lien on. They'll take second positions. So look into that. But when do you do the PP? Or the Paycheck Protection Loan application? And that's a really great question, and it's going to take some thinking and maybe some consulting and getting a hold of us or a professional. But the way, if you take it now and don't have any employees, you basically and you get the money, that starts the clock on the 8-week period for forgiveness. So you can only use those proceeds that are forgivable for qualified purposes: payroll, the rent, interest on mortgage payments, utilities, those types of things. So if you have no employees because they're all furloughed, you're not going to get anything forgiven.
So for an example, Dave, if your payroll is $100,000 a month, and that's 12 months trailing the time of the application, and you get approved, you're going to get $250,000 deposited in your bank. You have to use that $250,000 within 8 weeks. So if that was my payroll, $100,000 a month, and that's what it was, let's say prior to March, and I furloughed, 90% of my employees, and now my payroll's $10,000 a month, and it's not going to go back to 100 until mid-May or June, then I would have a lot of money that I would have to give back. Whereas if I waited until mid-May or June, when I have my employees back, I wouldn't have to pay back any of that money. Is that right?
Yep, that's exactly the strategy you'd use in that situation. So if you furloughed them, those employees aren't on your payroll right now. They're probably taking advantage of the unemployment benefits and all those programs that they've created under under this act. Yeah, I would. That's exactly what you would do if your employees are currently on your payroll and you're paying them, and then maybe working from home, or you're just a good people, and you kept them on, and so apply now and get the money now, because then the forgiveness provision, that 8-week period you have to spend the money on forgivable things, would start now. But timing would be important. But Bart, you're exactly right. If you have a practice that's furloughed and the practice isn't going to get back to full speed, anytime soon, probably, like you said, May, June, that's when the payroll is going to be coming back. That's when the employees are going to be coming back. That's when, that you're going to be spending the money on forgivable items, is take the proceeds to match that up.
Guys, I think for a lot of the doctors out there, May is going to make a lot of sense. And even if you don't, let's say you take that situation, you had 250,000 and you don't bring everybody back in one fell swoop, right? Let's say you bring them back over the course of 4 or 5, 6 weeks and you don't spend it all. It's not like the money is due right then. It's due over the, you have 2 years at 0.5%. Is that correct, Dave, to pay it back?
Yeah, there'd be different options for, okay, if you have money that's left over that's not forgiven, so you owe it back to the government, its first rule is not going to be due till next year. And, the interest then will start and the payments then, and, you'll have an option like, hey, you want a 24-month payback, those loans are going to be made at that 0.5% interest. You'll be able to take longer options if you want to stretch it out, but the interest rate will probably be higher, but it won't be more than 4%.
Got it. Okay.
So you'll have options, but in a perfect world, this program is designed, to keep employees and retain employees and to hire them back, is, get as much as you're qualified to get and plan your business. So as much of it is forgiven as possible. So, you've gotten an injection of cash, the government money, and it's forgiven, and the other icing, it's tax-free.
Right. So it gives everyone, this is going to be a really good thing for the economy. It gives everyone a buffer and allows us to carry a large payroll for another 2 months, freeing up your capital that everyone has kind of saved up over the years, freeing up your capital to do things to get the business back launched where it needs to be. So I would definitely make sure, guys, that you don't get it too soon when everyone is furloughed, when you start bringing people back, when we go through your 2-week launch, when the doors are about to open up again, whether it's late April or early May or whatever it is, that might be a really good time to put this through. And if you have cash flow problems before that, you need something more immediate than something like more of the traditional SBA loan, or something like the emergency disaster loan like Dave was talking about, might be something that you can do immediately and still do the payroll protection plan later. Dave, I also got a couple questions on, does the doctor's salary count into it? My understanding is if they're if they're paying payroll taxes on it, it's coming through as a salary, then it would count as long as it's up to no more than 100 grand.
But yeah, Bart, and that was important. When you compute your eligible payroll for purposes of your 12-month look back, is any employee earning more than 100,000 is capped. So the doctor, for example, they're only going to count the first 100,000 of their compensation. And if they have any other people in their practice that are earning that, you get to count the first 100,000 plus the benefits related to that. So it just reduces the amount of the loan. But yeah, the most you can count on any employee is 100,000.
Okay.
But you do get to count the doctor's 100,000,
Okay.
assuming that they're making 100,000.
Okay.
So, but yeah, there's the thing of it is, I just want to stress is there's strategy involved in this. It's just not a no-brainer that, hey, I don't need to think about this. There's some planning. If you want to maximize the value of the benefits here, we have to really look at each practice and decide what's best for you based on the facts of your practice and basically how you've handled the crisis and what you're doing, and how much revenue you've got still coming in and all those types of things. But really want to address a little bit. This is the non-bill stuff that, just is really common, good business sense. But, you need to also, if you're practices not generating any cash, but of course, you still have all the expenses that are fixed, and maybe even payroll costs to some extent. But look at your operating expenses. Lease payments, uh, mortgage payments, bank payments, rent, utilities. Talk to your lenders and your landlords. What in today's environment, what most banks and most lenders are doing is they're allowing you to defer payments on loans that you owe. And this applies to student loans, bank loans, any type of leases that are out there. So you can defer those. Most lenders, I know we are giving borrowers a 3-month forbearance or deferment where you don't have to make any payments. A lot of landlords are doing that because they have to do that just because you can't. They're one. They if you don't have the cash flow to pay your rent, they're going to work with you. The other thing that's out there is consider refinancing stuff. It's a great time to do that. And if you've got a loan that's kind of halfway in the amortization schedule where you're paying it, refinance it. You can get lower rates, lower payments. Those programs exist out there. I'm talking about just how to save cash and survive in this environment. The other thing is contact vendors and merchants, the people you do business with. A lot of times today they will, if you got accounts payable, they'll allow those to be paid at a later date as long as you work with them. There's also a tremendous amount of discounting and incentives for early payments. The other bullet I'm addressing is in today's world, cash or access liquidity is king. If you have cash or access liquidity, you can get some great deals. Bart's going to address that even on the marketing side. Some of the media stuff out there you can buy it. Basically leverage your dollars for those types of expenses. Consulting with your CPA, your tax advisors or business advisors. I think we've all know it's been in the press, all individual income tax deadlines have been extended till July 15th, including the payments due. So if you owe money to the IRS for income taxes, you can defer that till July 15th. You can defer your first quarter estimate if you're making estimated tax payments till then. Kind of a quirk is the second quarter estimate for individuals is due in June. They did not defer that. So you still have to make that, but anything that's due April 15th has been deferred. Be aware they've extended these deadlines for income tax for individuals. Other tax filings are still normally due, your payroll tax filings. So, you still have to continue to file a lot of tax filings on time, and your business has to continue to worry about that. I made it just to note, the importance, we're in the patient financing business. In today's environment, that's got to be part of your recovery plan. I'm seeing that I'm dealing with thousands of borrowers. People are going to need payment plans coming out of this when you get back in business to close cases. I don't care, people who have cash, they're not going to want to, they want to save it. They're not going to be comfortable spending it. They're going to like flexibility of payment plans. So it's really important that you have that ready to go and in place to take care of your patients. I would also tell you, to expect some changes in the credit markets. We're seeing that every day. I think lenders are going to be a little bit more tighter with underwriting standards, at least until things normalize. They want to make sure that, the people we're loaning money to have jobs. Their recovery is part of, they can make the payments. And so, we're not going to really be tightening a lot of our products. We want to help people. We want to help patients, but I can see, there's going to be tighter credit approvals in the credit markets for individuals and consumers, and also maybe pricing increases to cover expected additional losses. But, we're here to help people. And at this point in time, we have no plans to, really change any of that. We really want to take care of your patients and, get them payment plans that they can afford. And it's going to just be critical that you focus on those types of things, along with some other things Bart's going to be talking about. So,
hey, Dave, that's a good point, because that was one thing that we had discussed internally over here, just being that the vast majority of our clients, the types of marketing campaigns that we run are geared more towards big cases. That patient financing is of the utmost importance to the case acceptance rate. So I think the fact that you guys aren't going to be necessarily tightening up your parameters in the immediate future is a huge plus for everybody. I think when we come out of this, you're going to see a pent up demand in dentistry, just like you're going to see in every other industry right now. I think that's why the stimulus is going to work pretty well for us. It's just going to give people enough cash flow and income to not burn through all of their reserves. By the time we come out of it, they still have their reserves. So if they were interested in dental implants 6 weeks ago, 6 weeks from now, they're still going to be interested. So, I think that's a great point. I appreciate you making that, because that's probably not going to be the case with every single financing company.
Great. Yeah. So, it's just going to be important as part of your recovery plan that, you need to really understand that you can, that your people, your treatment coordinators who deal with the patients and the treatment plans, that patients are going to expect you to offer payment solutions and payment alternatives. So if you're going to close cases and do business with them and help them, that's going to be really important coming out of this. The other two slides I have here just for the audience is I've got some resources. The next slide is really just all of the different things you can go to with respect to the agencies, and their websites, and, how to find additional information. And these are good resources. And then the final slide, basically, if you want to get a hold of us, the contact people, myself and my VP of Finance are going to be dealing with a lot of the, finance and issues, getting people money and through these programs that the government has, and then, just doing business with it and getting us on, on board. We have those people that's on the last page. And finally, if you want a copy of this deck, I believe at the end of this, Progressive, there's going to be a way to request one and kind of a call to action that we'll be glad to send this to you. I know it's a lot of information. So, with that, Bart, I think I'm going to turn it over to you, and we'll get into, what you guys are all going to be doing to help the patients and, get things back on track. I think, as Bart said, there's going to be a lot of opportunity here, and we just got to be great business people, and you're going to have to, be thinking, be planning, and I think you come out of this, get your practice up to full speed as soon as possible. And then, I think for the right, the practices, there's an opportunity here to do as well or better than you did, pre-shutdown and pre the COVID-19 crisis. So Bart, with that, go ahead. Okay,
great. Guys, Dave, thank you so much for that information. It's good stuff. We have tons of questions. So guys, I know we got tons of questions we're not able to get to right this second. We're gonna do a live Q&A, and Dave, I'm gonna have some rapid fire questions for you at the end. So get ready to answer them as quickly as possible. But I want to get through. I'm gonna get through some of the marketing slides here. So look, here's what everybody's asking me. And it's a really good question. Everyone's going, hey, should we be advertising or not? Like, what is the point in advertising at all if the practice is closed? We don't know when it's going to open. We need to conserve cash, conserve liquidity. Why would we do anything right now, given that we can't do the consultations? I can't do an exam. We can't do any of the work unless it's, a serious emergency right now. Then why do it? And I think there's a couple different ways. There's a couple different ways to look at it. Okay. Number one, I think liquidity in any time like this, liquidity is important. And that's why this has been a really good lesson for a lot of people in terms of the importance of capital, retaining capital in your business, and making sure that we're not sucking every dollar out of profit out of our businesses every single month, maintaining good liquidity and a lot of capital in case we hit something like this. We don't have to panic, and we've got plenty of time, plenty of money. That's first and foremost. I think secondly, when you start to look at some of the advantages and disadvantages of doing it, there's just kind of two trains of thoughts, right? The first train of thought that I see out there, and not just in dentistry, but with any type of business, when something like this happens and there's a lot of uncertainty in the marketplace, people just tend to bring everything in and just kind of wait. Like, hey, I'm not going to do anything because I don't know exactly what's going to happen. We got to just wait and see what's going to happen before I make a decision. And I think when you really look at the big picture of this thing, you know, we don't have some big economic crisis right now. There's nothing fundamentally wrong with that. We've got a virus that's causing an issue, but we're going to come out of this, and there's going to be a pent up demand. So I think when you look at the advantages and disadvantages of doing something right now, some of the advantages you've got: minimal competition, right? Like most of the doctors are not doing anything. Most of the doctors out there and people in dentistry are kind of shutting it down. They furloughed a lot. They have kind of a skeleton crew. They might be taking some emergency cases, but for the most part, it's just like kind of hit the pause button. We do have some clients that have actually increased their advertising because of the some of the fees and things like that we can get specifically with media. But guys, minimal competition right now. Everyone's hit the pause button. It's very unique because when you have minimal competition, we also have a maximum audience. So like we have a captive audience of all of these people. One of the biggest things that I hear from my clients is, hey, how do we talk to qualified people? Let's get more qualified leads, people that are working. Well, usually, I mean, the people that are working are just a little bit busier and they don't have the same type of attention that people that are retired have in terms of their response rate to advertising. But right now, people that are working from home. They're working from home. All of the viewership on TV is up. All the listenership on radio is up. All the readership in terms of newspapers are all up. Social media is like through the roof in terms of traffic and time on site. YouTube through the roof. It always was before, but it's even more so now. So you've got a captive audience. We can reach out and talk to whoever we want, and the costs are lower than they've ever been. Those are the advantages right now. The disadvantages are a lot of practices are closed. So they're saying, if I'm closed, then what are we going to do? Even if they see it and they like it, by the time I'm open, maybe they forgot about it and I lost. Can't perform a traditional exam or do your regular, treatment plan process. And then, another disadvantage is just not having any type of certainty in regards to like, when can I actually get this person on the schedule? The way that I've seen, the way that I see it with situations like this is I always kind of default to playing offense. I think when everybody's pulling back, if you've got their attention, then you have to talk to them. The more we can talk to people right now, you have to understand with the way things are happening here, with the way things are happening, you're just not going to get a huge amount of leads right this second. But you are going to get a huge amount of impressions. So we just have to change the way that we think about marketing a little bit. Right now, all of your competitors that used to be big advertisers are probably spending zero or a small fraction of what they used to be spending. And this is when we've got everybody's ear. We've got everyone's ear. If you have their ear for 4 weeks, for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and we can get tens of thousands of impressions at a fraction of what it would have cost us in February, when they come out of it, somebody that might have never heard you before, never seen your brand, never knew what you did, never heard any of your messaging before, maybe they heard you 15 to 20 times by the time you actually come out of it. That's advertising. It pays dividends. But it is more so creative advertising at this point. So, I think the directional advertising, a lot of stuff that we all lived off of, which is your paid ads and Google and things like that, it's down a little bit because the search volume has dropped for dental related services because no one's going to go right now. So they're not exactly searching for it. But the creative side of things, which is, when you're going out into the marketplace and trying to educate the audience on who you are and what you do, and they don't necessarily have a need right now, that can be extremely productive. A lot of the things that we're using right now, for our clients that had, let's say they had a big pay-per-click budget and they were spending a lot of money through Google. A lot of times we're rerouting a lot of the funds through social media, a lot of YouTube, Facebook, Instagram type advertising, because the impressions are just very, very cheap. You can get in front of a lot of people. And if we've got some help from our clients and from the doctors in terms of creating current content, then you can get a fabulous result. And we're never really going to have these types of prices again. So I just think in terms of advertising, I ask yourself, am I going to push the pause button, just go on kind of a 6-week hiatus and conserve? And that's definitely an option. But that's not what we're doing as a company. What we're doing as a company is we're saying, hey, we've got the ear of all these doctors. We need to get content out. We need to talk to them. Let's get content out that can help them. Let's get content out of case studies, different campaigns. We're all going to come out of it. We, as a marketing company, we have 800 clients. We're in the same exact boat as all of you guys, right? But am I going to put it on pause and we're going to put the whole company on pause right now? No, I think that it's the easiest time to advertise right now. I think it's the easiest time for you and it's the easiest time for us. It just requires a little bit of change in the way that we're used to doing things. So if you are going to advertise or market, or you're interested in doing something, let's say you're a big advertiser and you're spending a lot of money on marketing, you might only have to spend a fraction of it, but you guys want to put something out there, keep it going and keep your brand in front of people and continue to provide content. But I think the type of content, like when this thing first hit, what I was telling my clients is, hey, let's get a video out. A lot of people are scared. They think they can't go to the dentist. It's unsafe. They're going to get sick. They don't know what safety precautions, if any, you're taking. So let's just do a quick video on, hey, you can still come to the dentist at this point in time for emergencies. Here's the precautions that we're taking. And we were putting those videos out in social media, and videos that we were putting out in February that might have gotten 300-400 views in the first week are now getting 15 to 20,000 views in the first week, just because it's connected to a topic that's so hot right now and it's current. I think from this point moving forward, right, I think April and on, the ticket is really going to be creating content that's more positive. Everything is so negative surrounding it. It's all like unemployment rate and it's businesses having trouble and it's what is this, what is that, tests are skyrocketing. It's just all this negative press. And I think that we can use this, especially, coming from dentistry. I'm telling my clients, let's create some positive content. One of the things that we're always begging for is to get some stories from the doctors. Say, pick out a handful, 5, 6, 7 different cases that you guys treated, patients that you treated over the last year. And every 5 or 7 days, we'll make a post about it. And it's just you sharing what you do with the public. Saying something like, look, guys, we're all stuck at home, working from home with the coronavirus, but we're all going to come out of it. We just want to take the time to share some really cool transformations that we're able to get for our patients over the course of the last 12 months and really change their lives and just kind of inspire people and get them thinking about something different. That's, our philosophy on advertising for you hasn't changed. We want to connect your brand with the emotional aspect of a patient making a transformation, a patient seeing a better version of themselves. Them working from home isn't going to vanquish their desire to become better, right? So let's get some positive content out. Any type of transformation stories, any type of information that's useful that can help your patients is great advertising. An example of that is what we're doing right here. This is just information that we know is going to be useful to all of our clients, and we open it up to non-clients too on this call. We've had a few that was just for ours, but for this one, it's open up to doctors that aren't necessarily already progressive dental clients. I think blogs and videos are the way. You guys can do videos very, very quickly, and we can have them up and running in a day on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, and put a small amount of money behind it to boost it or run an ad campaign, and you can get a massive amount of leads. And no one else is doing it. Everyone's too scared. Everyone's too scared to take advantage of a great deal. And this, we already saw this in 2008 with the recession. Everyone pulling out of the stock market because it crashed. And then everyone's like killing themselves now because of what the stock market did, you know, years later. And they all took all their money out and just shut it down when they should have been buying. And they should have had money to look at foreclosures and look at properties. That was going to be aggressive. And this isn't going to be near as long. We have a very short window here of advertising, advertising prices like this. We have a very short window where we have massive leverage with TV stations and radio stations that we've never had before. 2 weeks ago, we renegotiated all of my clients that were in media. We renegotiated everything, and we got almost a minimum of 50%, like a 50% reduction, and we got bonus spots added in. So we have to have, if we have the content, the buys are a great deal, and you guys can get in front of so many people that you're not going to get in front of, and they don't have anything else cluttering their thought process. They're not getting hit with, you know, ad after ad after ad from other dentists right now. They need a voice in our industry. You should be the voice for the people in your community. That's kind of my take on should you do it or should you not. I think if you're going to do it and you create the content the right way, you remember, you know, your CTA right now while you're closed has to be to get online and do a teleconsultation or a virtual consultation. So guys, remember that it's not a full-blown exam, it's a consultation. It's just like doing, you know, kind of pre-qualifying, pre-qualify, find out where they are, where they want to be, answer basic questions. You guys can get into, you know, if they're interested in dental implants, you can do a dental implant consultation. You can get into the different, to different protocols. You can get into different pricing pre-qualifications. You guys can even get them pre-qualified through Proceed. So by the time they come in, they already have an idea of what ballpark the pricing's in. You've triaged them out. You've got them approved for financing, and it's already on the schedule for May. So, you know, we have to have somebody, one of your team members that's responsible for handling the leads that will come in. And then, you know, the doctors have to make themselves available to do some of these webinar meetings. Got a lot of clients that have called me personally, and they're saying, well, you know, what am I supposed to do? I can't work. And I'm like, BS, you can't work. You might not be able to treat patients. You might not be able to go in your practice, but you can work. We can all work on our business. There's nothing that's going to prevent you guys from getting on a call with a patient. Nothing preventing your team from following up with the millions of dollars in unscheduled treatment that all of my clients have. You know, like right now, we should take this time as a gift to be efficient in all of the areas that we're inefficient. And lead management is one of the biggest areas of inefficiency for my clients. Unscheduled treatment is an unbelievably inefficient area. And what do I get all the time? Bart, we don't have time to follow up with them. Bart, we don't have time to follow up with the leads. Well, thank God we got time, right? We got time. So let's do it. Let's follow up with the leads, get them on the line, talk to them, find out where they are, what they want, and get them excited about coming in May. And look, if you think, you know, if we've got a date of, hey, this shutdown is going to go through May 10th, you know, start scheduling the appointments for, you know, the May 12th, May 13th, May 14th, and just let patients know that, you know, if something changes and you have to push it out, you'll push it out, but they're going to have the same priority. So lead management is very important, and I want you guys to remember to think and be as aggressive as you possibly can right now. You know, your ad dollars are going to spend basically, you know, 50%. So, I mean, for what we could get for $1,000, we can now get it for $500 and have even more impressions. So, you know, if you're going to cut your budget, cut it, but run something and create content. So I'm telling all my clients, if you have time, if you're not treating patients, you should be working on things to get patients. So you're either creating content or you are reaching out to patients, or you're doing consultations, virtual consultations. And if you're doing that every day, you can work really, really hard, and you guys are going to come back. As soon as you come back, you're slammed. You got a bunch of patients that are pre-qualified to get financing, and you're going to come out of this and hit it out of the park. And guess what everyone else is going to do? They're going to come out of it. And the first day in the office, they're going to go, oh God, all right, what do we do? How do we fill the schedule? Oh, let's start calling them and calling them. And I'm going to go, what have you been doing? What have you been doing for the last 5 weeks? You've been doing nothing. That's why it's going to take you another 5 weeks to get back to where you were in February. And that just doesn't make sense. So they can put a pause on you treating patients, but they can't put a pause on you being an entrepreneur and building your business and growing your business and pushing it forward, and you want to bring back people on payroll. There's a lot of people that can be brought back on payroll that can do nothing but just call through unscheduled treatment and pound the phones. The treatment coordinators should be back. They should be slam busy every single day. Whoever answers your phone should be busy, because if that phone's not ringing, then they should be calling somebody. Any position you have within the practice that's responsible for revenue generation should be working, and they should be working with a very high degree of urgency. And I think that's another positive to the whole situation, is sometimes people get complacent with their jobs. And I think sometimes owners get complacent with where they are in their business. And it's very easy for that to happen when things are good. But right now, guess what? So many people being laid off, people aren't complacent. It's a whole nother level of efficiency that I'm seeing. Even with my people, the way that we're working right now is just totally different than it was. And that's not a bad thing. It really isn't. And then look, let's say we've got a date of like May 10th when we're going to open it up and we're going to be ready to go. You want to have a campaign ready, a 2-week blitz that's not so much just sharing case studies and branding type of advertising that we're going to be doing for the most part in April. That's kind of what it's going to look like. The 2-week blitz is going to be more like right now, direct response CTA campaigns. And you make sure you're the first one to advertise. And it's all these people that are in limbo. All these people that are in limbo, we need to create a CTA and a campaign to get them coming to you guys first. And you can pull a lot of big cases away from your competitors simply because they're not taking calls, simply because they're not talking to anybody. Until they get back physically in their office, they're extremely vulnerable because they have no plan not to be vulnerable during this time. So those are some of the things that we're going to be working with our clients on. And one thing we're doing for you guys, everyone that's on the call right now, you guys can go to this website, practicerecoveryplan.com, and just fill out the form, and we can help you guys create a specific plan. Because I know every practice is a little bit different areas of the country different as far as their shutdowns. There's not like one plan I can just send to you guys that's going to work for everybody. So timing, and then what type of content to create, how to advertise, how to go ahead and set this up, and everything could be little changes. So you guys can go to this website, get a consultation with myself, with Jarrett, and we'll take you guys through, from start to finish. We're here to work, and the faster that you guys get back to treating patients in big cases, the faster it gets back to normal for us and everybody else. So that's our motivation, is just to make sure that you have everything you need so that you can come out of this stronger than you went in, and we can dominate. And I feel very strongly that it's not the best idea to just pause your sales and your marketing and just, go on a 6-week hiatus right now. I feel it can be a very, very dangerous thing to do. And the longer you go when you're on pause, the harder it is to get the momentum going back the other way. And you guys understand what I mean with the momentum when you're rolling. You're just rolling. When you're not, it can take a long time. So we'll go ahead and open it up to some question and answer. And Dave, I'll throw you some over here. And hey, I don't know where.
I just want to mention one thing real quick, Bart. On these recovery plans, and a lot of good stuff thrown out by you guys to get these, the practices back on their feet and getting them back to, the pre-COVID-19 levels and even exceeding that. A lot of the plans, there's going to be some investment involved in marketing. And we've got a special program is we're one of the unique lenders that we loan money to doctors and practices. So if you want to spend some money with Progressive, we can loan you the money, and then you wouldn't have to, repay that until obviously the value, the marketing kicks in. And we'd love to talk to you about that too. That's another program that we offer. We're trying to get you back on your feet. We'd also, defer payments under those programs, so your first payment wouldn't be due until you're back, your practice is in positive cash flow and working. So that's there as well. We want to help you guys get back on track, and whatever we can do. We're all in this together, and we're going to get through this, and we're going to be positive, going to be agile, and we'll get there.
All right, cool. A couple questions. Got a question here. How do you schedule unscheduled treatment now when you don't know when you're returning and need to get the patients who were scheduled in too? You just have to eyeball it. You don't, that's the thing. You don't know exactly when. So just eyeball it and let the people know. You might have to move the schedule around. Maybe, if you think that, and every state is different, right? With when they said dental practices are going to be shut down until, but just take whatever date you have now and just start scheduling after it. And if you have to move them, then you have to move them. But you want to have some way to get them on the schedule. And for right now, until we have more certainty later on in the month, right now you just have to eyeball it and let them know that we may have to change it. For right now, we're going to put you in to this time spot on this date. Hopefully it works well. For some reason we have to push it back, then we'll push it back and we'll reach out and reschedule you at that time. So you just kind of have to eyeball it. Another one's, can money be used to pay dental labs, fixed office expenses, like Lighthouse and dental supplies? I don't think it can be used for any vendors or anything like that. Right, Dave?
Yeah, once you get the money, and it could be a substantial check. Okay, there's kind of two different types of purposes. One, it's to retain and bring back employees, and to help you pay fixed costs, mortgage payments, utilities, rent. All of those things can be paid and used for it, and they're forgivable. So that's the forgivable piece. If you use the money for other things, it's just that you're gonna have to pay it back under the terms. So it's really not say, hey, you can't spend it for these types of things. If you need to pay bills with it, you can. It's just that those aren't forgivable expenses. It's the
right.
Cost.
Yeah, you can use it for whatever you want, but I think they're probably asking, what's forgivable and what's not. And forgivable is just payroll, rent, utilities, and interest on debt, right?
Yeah, the categories, and they defined it in the bill, that's the forgivable costs are, of course, all payroll costs. Now that includes benefits, and just not, gross salaries. You can, pay their health insurance, but you can also pay interest on debt. The mortgage, the actual principal payment is not forgivable. The interest is. They included rent, utilities, and just when they say rent, those can include lease payments on things like that, equipment, those types of things. But that's really the forgivable usage of the funds. Those were the categories. So interest, rent, lease payments, utilities, all employee costs. So it's salary, benefits, anything that deals with employee expenses or cost of having employees.
Okay, great. Got another one that said, isn't advertising going to be looked at as greedy or mercenary? It depends on how you do it, but I don't think it's ever going to be looked at as greedy or mercenary if you guys are sharing examples of how you've helped people enrich and change their life. I don't think anyone's going to look at it like that. That's the type of content that people like to watch and that they need to watch during this time. And also, this isn't really, that's just kind of a comment there, but it's like, oh, this is an economic crisis. Well, yeah, right this second, but it's not we don't have anything fundamentally wrong. If the virus is gone tomorrow, then, people are going to go back to work. So that's kind of all I meant by that. Choose, I can accept the PP loan. Let's see. There's a lot of questions here I'm trying to get to. Let's see. If you don't use all the money, any left over by 8 weeks, can you give it back to the government. That's kind of the idea, right? You
Yeah,
pay
that,
it back.
any money that's not forgiven after the 8 weeks, don't give it back. It's not due, and it becomes a loan, and you pay it back. But the
But there's
first
no prepayment penalty if
until
you want.
next year, so you get the use of the money, and then there'll be very favorable terms for repayment of any leftover money that's not forgiven. You'll have choices, and there'll be very low interest rates.
Okay. Here's one. I've got a partnership with two other doctors. We are likely going to use both disaster loan and the PPP. That partnership pays my personal PLLC S Corp via K1. My S Corp then pays me as an employee on payroll. Can I use the PPP for my S Corp and also be using the PPP and disaster loan for my partnership? What do you think, Dave?
Well, now you're getting some complicated kind of
Yeah,
tax.
that's like a tax issue.
These are, like I said, there's no size fits all for this stuff. Now, I've dealt with a lot of complicated, corporate structures and those types of things. A lot of DSOs, have those types of things. But the general rule is this: if you have entities that are not 50% commonly owned, so the same people don't own, more 50% of each entity is eligible to apply. And you can get, if it's different tax ID numbers, you can get multiple payroll retention loans, as long as the ownership isn't, meets what they call aggregation or affiliation rules. And then, you can get also, the grants and the disaster loans as well, which entity should get it. It sounds like you've got kind of multiple doctors, a lot of, different entities, different payment structures, S Corp. There are different tax advantages that they were probably using for that, but it's, the entity that hires the employees or is going to rehire the employees are the entities that need to be applying. If you have entities that are leasing or, you have a partnership that owns the building or the real estate, you got rental deals where, the practice is renting or paying rent to an entity, a real estate entity, the real estate entities aren't going to qualify because there's no employees there.
Right.
I mean, it's just that kind of a question is, that's a call me back. I need to know more information to be able to give you what I would say would be your best options or send you to the right spot to get a good answer.
Got it. Okay. How would you handle the situation where employees do not want to come back to work for a reason when the real reason is that they are making more net on unemployment? Then hire somebody else. That's all. There's not the job market's going to be great for us. I mean, coming out of this, there's going to be plenty of people that are ready to go, back to work. So you guys don't have to hire the same exact people back to take advantage of it. It's a payroll thing. If you hire somebody new within that 8-week period, hire them. But I mean,
it's a head count concept. They don't have to be the same people. You just have to,
right.
Jobs is what the whole intent is. And so if you have, I get that question too a lot. Okay, what do I do with my people? Do I lay them off, put them on a furlough, send them down so they get unemployment, take advantage of all the unemployment benefits that have been enhanced under these programs? So they're off my payroll, but I want to bring them back because I'm going to need them at some point in time. That strategy is good because a lot of, that makes the most economic sense. I have some clients that, are retaining all their employees right now. They're just that type of an employer, or they have enough work for them to do. It may not be full-time work, but they've got work, and these people do want to work and contribute. Those types of practices, get your money now because the 8-week window of when you measure your forgiveness, you're going to be just fine. So it's kind of what are your facts and your unique situation for your practice to give you the best advice. So the goal is, hey, get as much as you can. And then get as much of that forgiven as possible. And, you've got tax-free income and, the whole intent of this free money is doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Got it. Okay. Got another one, again, a comment, but it's kind of an interesting question. It says, if I had my way, I'd stop marketing now and hit it hard when patients come back in a month or two. Well, what I say to that is that's what everybody's saying that. That's nothing new. I mean, we're trying to gear up to launch all these brand new campaigns because to advertise when they get back. to fill their schedule. So that's nothing new. That's what everyone's going to think. But part of being a savvy business owner is not doing what the obvious thing, what everybody's going to do, which is just wait. And then when I get back and I'm for sure and I know exactly what's going to happen, then I'm going to do it. You know, sometimes it's acting, taking massive action when you don't have that type of certainty. Taking massive action with uncertainty is where you get the big payoffs. You wait until you're back, everybody else is going to be advertising then too. And then you're back in February and you've got all the same competitors. Guys, right now you don't have competitors. No one's talking to people and they're all sitting at home. It's simple, right? Let's see. Let's see. How do you deal with employees who might prefer to get unemployment? That's kind of the same thing. If they do, fine, bye, go get someone new. Let's see. Sorry, there's a lot. I'm just kind of scanning through some of these. I heard from another source that once PPP funds are approved, you can delay the acceptance of those funds until you're ready to open. Is this not the case? That's a great question. What's the answer to that, Dave? I'm not sure.
Okay, would you repeat that once again?
So if I apply on Friday on the 3rd and I get approved, can I say, okay, I'm approved now, I don't want the money until May 15th?
Yeah, that's what we appear is going to be available. It's the clock. The 8-week clock starts when you sign the loan docs and get funded. Okay, so if you can get approved, okay, and now can you defer? I don't want to close the loan until some date. I believe that's going to be available, but that there's, the banks are still interpreting some of that. Some, you may get to the back of the line where all of a sudden, when you need the money, you're in some kind of a waiting period to get funded, and because you didn't take it when you had the chance. So there could be some timing, but yeah, in general, I believe that's going to be available. You can go ahead and get approved, but don't close your loan until you have to take the money before June 30, or it's gone. So got to take it at some point in time. But yeah, go ahead and get a lot of practice. You ask for what should I be doing now? What should I be people doing now? Have the application's been available, get all the calculations done, get what documentation you need to take to your lender so you do get approved.
Yeah.
I've got I don't know how many businesses that are ready to go into the bank Friday morning and get this moving and are ready. So, if you're not, those are things that you can be doing, because the 12-month look back, is a calculation that has to be done, and you have to be able to document, and so a banker can verify that information.
What about this one, Dave? My understanding is that the EIDL loan is forgiven for qualified expenses too. Is that correct?
No.
Right.
That's the emergency disaster loan. That's full repayment. Now there's one provision in there that's a grant. I think you can get up to $10,000 to be forgiven, but it looks like a traditional SBA loan is paid back. There are favorable payback terms, but that's a full loan with full repayment. It's not the forgivable provisions are in the Payroll Protection Act program.
What about this one, Dave? What if you pay an associate dentist 1099? Can this be part of payroll? If not, can they be converted into W-2 regarding this time period and be eligible for forgiveness? My understanding is no, that 1099 is not part of it, but
yeah, I mean, you can't count 1099 type of, so if you've been paying people via independent contractor, that's not wages. And actually those independent contractors, because they're getting that kind of income, can apply and get a grant themselves. I mean, a lot of people that, hey, I'm a one person independent contractor. I've got, income from those sources. I report that income on my taxes and pay Social Security, all that. Those people are eligible to apply too. And they can get, their share of that as well, and can count their self-employment income in the wage base, but you can't double count. I mean, if you're paying them as a 1099 contractor, they're going to use that wage or income for their calculation, and it's not eligible for yours. Now, the question on conversion, okay, I hire them back and I want to now hire them as employee instead of a contractor, that would count, for purposes of the, creating employment after your loan is funded.
Correct.
Now,
Correct.
you may have some labor thing that are going to warn you.
Yeah.
If you turn them into employees, are going to probably, you got another tax issue. Well, why?
Exactly. They're not going to want the doctors aren't.
Before, and you expose yourself to paying, Social Security and all that because you didn't treat them as a contractor or an employee prior to. And what's the difference in work they're doing? So I'd be really careful with that one now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. And, what should we charge for the virtual consultation? Personally, I would not charge for a virtual consultation when you guys are not in the office. You're not doing an exam. They're not coming in exhausting any resource. The only resource they're exhausting is your time right now. And I wouldn't put any obstacle or barrier in front of you speaking with a potential patient. I would want to get in front of as many potential patients during this downtime as possible. Let's see. Yeah, a lot of people are just making comments like, what if the funds run out? What if I wait and then all the funds are exhausted, and they run out and then I don't get it? No, that's not really a question that anybody can answer, but the Fed's pretty good about printing more money. So,
Bart, I got that question all day today. Hey, if I wait, that 350 billion is going to be gone, and I'm shut out because no more available because of the allocation. My view on that would be, if you're an eligible business, the deadline was established. You can apply through June. Then the program ends, and the money ran out before then. They'll reallocate more funds because I don't know how they could shut out businesses that otherwise would have qualified, and they ran out of money. So that's a question I can't answer. That's a congressional question, right. But I would foresee they'll make an additional allocation to cover all the qualified applications through the date of the program.
Got it.
Not guarantee. I'm not a politician, but that's what I would assume would be the right thing to do.
Got it. Let's see. Understanding is that you can pay the EIDL back with the funds from the PPP, but hopefully you don't have any funds or much left over from the PPP because you've used it for your payroll and your expenses, so you don't have to pay it back at all. I think that's what's so powerful about the PPP is it's free money that's forgiven if you use it for payroll, rent, utilities, and interest incurred during that time period. So you wouldn't want to use it to pay anything except for those, because then you're going to have to pay that back. So hopefully it's not that much. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, I agree. Obviously the objective, and I'm just saying, in a perfect world, you get as much as you can get that you're eligible for, and it's spent in that 8-week period to revitalize your business and your practice. And it's all forgiven because it was used on, qualified expenses, and there's no payback. The money is tax-free and it's over. Now, if you have leftover and you didn't spend all of it on qualified expenses during that period, the remaining has to be paid back. You get to use that money for whatever you need to use it for, but you will pay it back the following year. But it's not free money. So, the planning would be, can you get the best of all worlds, is get as much as you can and not have to pay it back, and it's tax-free. That requires, an analysis of each practice. In some cases that may not be possible, but, there's a lot of opportunity to try to make it possible.
Okay. Can you go over the loan calculation again? Is it just gross pay, or is employer 401k contribution, health insurance premium included?
Yep. And anybody out there that didn't, if you respond to this website and inquire a practice recovery plan, for a consultation and call back, we'll provide this deck to you that has all this in there. But yeah, the eligible cost is gross payroll. You get to also add on top of that all of your employee benefit costs, health insurance, retirement plan, 401k, certain payroll taxes get added back into that as well. And there may be some other eligible employee costs that can go on. You know, one of them I got it today was, could I add, is an employee benefit considered, have provide uniforms and those types of things to all my employees? Is that an employee benefit? Well, that's not defined, but, you know, I will tell you, I would probably, you know, say, try it, because I don't think there's a lot of downside as long as it's a direct employee benefit. You know, those kind of things weren't thought of when this bill was put together, but the intent was to include all employee costs fully loaded.
Okay, got it. Look, a lot of people are kind of, there's quite a few comments asking about, like, well, you know, if they want to stay on unemployment for a long period of time, and then if they don't want to come back or whatever, I would just, guys, like, unemployment is an impermanent thing, right? They're not going to get it for their entire life. So I'm not sure that I would really want anybody a part of my team that thought it was better to collect unemployment than to work and have a stable job. So you know, my comment is don't worry too much about it. There's a lot of other people that are really going to be wanting to go to work and are going to be really excited about getting an opportunity right now. And I think that you can take advantage of that as well. What about paying corporate credit card bills with PPP money? I mean, you can pay anything with PPP money. It's just a question of what's going to be forgiven and what's not, right, Dave?
That's correct. And then, yeah, and the other thing I mentioned or didn't, you know, wanted to in my presentation because of time is I kind of dwelled on the front end of getting this money, what all needs to be done, and how you compute that. We didn't really talk a lot about what do you have to do to get this loan forgiven on the back end, you know, when that comes, so that the banks are going to be the lender that made you the loan, that verified all your numbers for the employment calculations and you know, your payroll calculations, are also going to be the same people that are going to be responsible to verifying that you spent the money on forgivable items. And then you'll put in a request to, you know, another form will go into the government saying, I'm requesting forgiveness of, you know, this many dollars of my loan I received. And then the bank will be responsible for verifying that, you know, that money was actually spent. So that's step 2. But, you know, today I'm focusing on step 1, and that's getting the money. How to maximize the value for giving it is just that during that 8-week period, it's got to be spent on those items. But you will also have to prove that, and there'll be a verification process to get the loan forgiven. So it goes away. And then whatever's left over, you're going to have to then pay off.
Well, guys, here's what I want everyone to remember. Like, we basically, with this program, we've got an opportunity to realize an influx of cash during these times into our business. It's going to allow us to float payroll for 2 months and never pay it back. They're going to pay for our payroll for 2 months for us. Pay for it. So as we're ramping up, that should be a huge burden off of our shoulders to allow you to take your funds and put them more to work in terms of growing and relaunching your business. It's a really, really good thing. I just wanted to make sure everyone had good information on it. You know where you can go to get the application. Like Dave says, if you guys go to the website, practicerecoveryplan.com, you get a consultation. We're going to send you guys the deck. We'll send you all of the information so that you're ready to apply on Friday. And then once you do, you know, switch into thinking about being on offense and go, all right, how can we do well right now? What is our plan for April? How do we become productive in April? What are we going to do? How do we take advantage of it? And get aggressive there so that, you know, by the time it comes around, you're back in your practice, you know, you never missed a beat. You were working the whole time. Let everyone else wait. You know, believe me, it'll be October or November before they get back to normal. Because they just took too long taking no action. So that's my take on it. That's my message for all of our clients and all the doctors out there. You know, we're working over here round the clock. I know Dave is as well, answering phone calls and working on campaigns and helping you guys create content and doing everything that we can possibly do to make sure that everyone is doing really well. So, hey, Veronica, we have another place for them to send any questions that they might have. You guys got, we just put in Dave's email address. If you have questions for Progressive,
Questions at Progressive Dental.
you can send them into questions@progressivedental.com if we didn't get a chance to answer any of those. But I really appreciate everyone getting on the call. It was really fun. Dave put a lot of time and energy into doing some research for you guys. And I'm looking forward to speaking with all of you guys, you know, over the course of the next 2-3 weeks. And don't get down. Don't listen to everybody that's just scared and negative and not doing anything. You know, it's like just the other day, you know, what was a couple weeks ago, you know, the Facebook stock was down to like $140. Like, of course you buy that. I mean, there's just certain things that you have to do right now. Not knowing exactly when it's going to bounce back, it doesn't matter. It's a good time to do a lot of things, and let's push the practice forward and come out better for it. So I'm Bart Ellinger, CEO of Progressive Dental. Really appreciate all you guys being on the call. Dave, thank you so much for helping out there from a financial perspective and all the research and energy that you guys put in. We absolutely love working with you. You've helped so many of our clients. So very grateful to have you guys as a resource.
Great. Well, hey, thanks for inviting us, and it's our pleasure. And you know, we just want to help all of the listeners here get through this. We're all on the same, we're all on the same team, and we've got some challenges none of us ever thought in our lifetimes that we'd ever see, but we will get through this. And you know, we're excited. You know, after this is over, I think those that view the opportunities are going to be out there and do the work they need to. You know, life is going to be better than it was prior to all of this, and you know, we're all going to come out of this just fine.
All right. Okay, guys, take it easy. Go to the website, get your consultation, and you can get a hold of us anytime. You know, I'm sitting here at the office right now, so anything you need, that's what we're here for. And hey, a lot of people are asking, is there going to be a link to replay this? Mm-hmm. Where are you going to put it?
It's going to be in the follow-up emails that are sent out.
So everyone here on this call is going to get a follow-up email. A link of this webinar is going to be on there, so you guys can rewind it, watch it again, and get all the information.
Yep, okay? And it'll be on our website as well. We're going to post it there, so you can go to www.proceedfinance.com. It'll be archived there as well to access, and we'll make sure that you'll do this. And there's a likelihood if this is popular, we'll do this a few times before during this whole crisis period. And we're it's very liquid and mobile out there and fluid. So as we have good information to share and good ideas, we're going to try to get to do more of these.
Okay. All right, guys, everybody be safe, work hard, and I look forward to speaking with you. Bye-bye.
All right. Good night. Thank you, everyone.
See you, Dave.
Leave it or just